Hello, if you want to watch exclusive lemon content on What If Naruto, then go to my Boosty. The first link in the description here contains such hot stories for adults, such as What If Naruto was a daddy for Sarada, or Kushina and Mikoto vulgar Naruto mommies. Follow the link and enjoy. I'm waiting for you.
What would happen if during the Wave arc Kakashi died, but decided to leave a legacy to his sensei before he died, his right eye? And then Naruto began to acquire powers of his own. Discharge of responsibility. Naruto doesn't belong to me, leave it to Kishimoto, even if he's not doing a very good job. It had been a long day for Naruto Uzumaki. He was about to kill Aku, Zabuza's accomplice, a person who in other circumstances could have been his friend. But he didn't have the strength to do it in time, and Aku went to save his master. Hindsight. So what? Kakashi thought with Iba. His Reikiri had not crossed his target. His hand was resting directly on the torso of Zabuza's accomplice. Zabuza, who was not looking at a gift horse's teeth, dealt a downward slash with his huge Zanbatsu. For his effort, he split Aku dead in half and also cut Kakashi's arm. A useful tool all the way, and you, Kakashi, resistant to the end too, it doesn't matter. It won't mean anything in a moment, Zabuza said confidently. Kakashi was on his knees, writhing in pain, clutching his bloody stump. At the end of his monologue, Zabuza saw his opportunity and, with the speed of his reflexes, fruit of his years as Ambu, attacked with a shuriken on Zabuza's head, which ended with a dry blow. While Zabuza's lifeless body fell to the ground, Kakashi lay on the cold ground, patiently waiting for his death-firm blood loss. Sensei, what happened to you? Oh, Kami, don't worry, you'll get through this, Naruto exclaimed in concern. Naruto, don't worry. My time has come, and I'm completely ready for it, Kakashi stated weakly as he pondered over a thought. But, Naruto, I would like to entrust you with some knowledge, and perhaps a gift, Naruto asked perplexed. What kind of knowledge and type of gift? He is of your lineage, and as for the gift, I would like to trust my sharing an eye, Kakashi said. Naruto was speechless. My parents, how could I know about them? Your father was my sensei. His name was Minato Namikaze. The Yonda and Miokai, your mother's name was Kushina Uzumaki. They were both great people, but there is no time for questions, I can be. To feel two large groups of people on either side of the bridge, I can only assume it could be Gatu's men and the villagers, Kakashi said with his voice getting softer by the minute. Surprise wasn't even the word to describe how Naruto felt at that moment. He felt his brain shut down for a step of seconds and was slowly recharging. But Kakashi kept going. When this battle is over, have a doctor surgically implant my eye in yours, or does it hurt? I wish you luck on your journey to become a legend, and don't forget to bring your team with you. And I also give them permission to look under. For my mask, peace. And with one last smile in his eyes, Kapakatka almost doesn't exist anymore. For the first time in years, Naruto cried for his parents, cried for Sasuke, and cried for his recently deceased sensei. Until their duel was interrupted by a cruel and confident voice. How touching, I should thank him. He eliminated Zabuza and his little brat, they are easy prey now. It was Gitu standing in front of an army of thugs, he was the cause of all this mess. Naruto stood up and glared at him. Then he spoke with an intense and burning hatred. You are the cause of my pain, you are the reason why my sensei and my partner are dead, and if you dare to show me your face, I will kill you. As he spoke, a gray chakra began to surround him. He raised his hand and pointed at Gitu, and the black chakra concentrated into a large ball. And thus the first original Naruto jutsu emerged. Chakra explosion. A bolt of pure black chakra pierced through Gitu's chest, and all the thugs behind him. The rest of the thugs feared for their lives and fled. Naruto looked at his hands, noting the gray chakra. He felt it as his own, except in an evolved form. He let his chakra run out and turned around. He came across the image of Sakura, Sasuke, and all the inhabitants of the Wave Country, looking at him in amazement. He did the first thing that came to his mind. He put his hands to his mouth and shouted, "Is there anyone with a medical license? I'm going to need eye surgery." End of the flashback. And that's what brought him here, staring at the white ceiling, to the extremely small Wave hospital, with Dr. Kaminari, the best in Wave, preparing to perform an eye surgery. as Naruto stared at the bed next to him holding his dead sensei. The anesthesia came through the tube that was connected to the mask he was wearing, and a small tear fell from his right eye. 4 hours later, Naruto's eyes slowly opened to see the white ceiling, and he stared at it until a voice interrupted his peace. "Wow, Tobe, I don't remember Sensei's Sharingan looking like this." Naruto could. He could make out Sasuke's arrogant voice from anywhere. He sat up to see Sasuke and Sakura sitting in front of him. Naruto looked at him curiously. "What do you mean?" Naruto asked. "Here's your headband, check it out for yourself," Sasuke said, and threw it at her. Naruto caught her, looked at the reflective metal, and saw his new Sharingan. What he saw shocked him. Her entire sclera was black, and her 3 tomes were connected to each other were white. Previously, imagine Madara's Sharingan Mangekyou before she took her brother's eyes off. "Wow!" Naruto whispered in amazement. Suddenly, a sharp pain came from his new Sharingan, and it became more and more painful until finally, he let out a scream. And his eye started bleeding black blood, and then he fainted. Naruto's mindscape. Where am I? Naruto was now in a sewer, sunk up to his ankles in dirty water. Oh, that's not nice. And that's when he looked up at a giant cage, the doors of which seemed to be joined by a piece of paper with the stamp box. Suddenly, gigantic glowing red eyes appeared. To say that Naruto was scared was an understatement, a huge one. Naruto wasn't scared, he was terrified. The Cubino Yoko was sitting in front of him with all her might, and, if that wasn't enough, she was staring at him with her bright red eyes. He was pretty sure that he would have died from the murderous intent if it wasn't for the bars containing him, and even then, the feeling of impending doom was unbearable. "Yes, pathetic, you are nothing but humanoid trash. My stool has more power than you," Kirugi bellowed. "You are the Kirugi," Naruto whispered. "Of course, what are you brain dead about? How can your Sharingan be so strong if you are not like Madara? You are not like your parents. And most likely you will never amount to anything. Never mind, I'm rambling, and I'll get straight to the point. I'm going to destroy your eye because I completely despise it. Believe me, it will not feel pleasant. You already tried it when you were conscious, but now that you are here, my influence over you has increased. So the pain will be multiplied by 10. I just thought I should announce you." Kyuubi ended with malice. An evil red chakra was seeping through the bars of the cage. He was slowly approaching Naruto, immersed in angry thoughts. This demon insulted his family, one of the founders of Konoha, and, above all, himself. That didn't sit well with him. The Kyuubi would not come out of this unscathed. Naruto's chakra began to flow into Kyuubi's. Spiritual gray against red bill. What a strong chakra, comparable to that of the Rikudo Sennin. Maybe my container is not as weak as I thought. Too bad it's not enough, grah. The Kyuubi roared. "I will not be defeated," Naruto shouted. While his chakra was being repressed, his Sharingan started spinning uncontrollably. And that's when he looked Kirubi in the eyes. "What? No. This can't be happening again. You're not as strong as Madara. I'll get out of your control soon, grah." Kirubi let out one last deafening roar, before turning into a whirlpool that was absorbed by her Sharingan. Outside the gates of Konoha, Naruto woke up on someone's back, looked down to see Yukia's fan. Sasuke thought Naruto. Sasuke, sensing an evil aura behind him, looked at Naruto with wide eyes. The funny thing was that Naruto's strange Sharingan seemed to have red chakra emanating from his eye. "Sakura, look who's woken up, and Naruto, you should cover your eye, you don't want to suffer from chakra depletion like Sensei," Sasuke said slowly. Apparently, he was also a little upset about Sensei's death, Naruto thought sadly. "That's weird, I don't feel my chakra decrease at all. Is it possible that by absorbing the Kirugi, it will become the fuel for my eye? Maybe, well, I'll cover it in honor of Kakashi." "Naruto, what happened to you? Dr. Kaminari said you went into a coma for unknown reasons. Would you mind telling us what's going on?" Sakura asked with a curious look. "Mom, I'd like to entrust you with some knowledge," Naruto said, following his Seni's lead. He smiled at the sad memory, but quickly prepared for what he was about to reveal to his companions. You guys know about the Kirugi attack, of course you do, why would I ask that? Anyway, to summarize, the Yondaime could not defeat such a powerful being, so he chose the second best option, to seal it in his son. Naruto finished the sentence weakly. He looked at his teammates, and saw that their reaction was very similar to his when Mizuki told him. I'm sure you're thinking about how the dobe can have so much power. Yeah, well fuck you too, thought the demonic container bitterly. You are the son of the Yondaime? Sasuke and Sakura asked in disbelief. Yes. You don't see the resemblance. He smiled charmingly. While he and his companions were running along the rooftops on their way to the Okage Tower to report on their mission. They looked up at the Okage monument. Wow. How come we haven't heard about this? Sakura asked skeptically. Well, no one really knows, it's like a secret, Naruto said shyly. A drop of sweat escaped Sakura. How can someone overlook something so obvious? He thought. I'm almost sure that 5 minutes ago, you were one of those who didn't know, the inner Sakura replied. Shut up. Yes, Sakura is a troubled person, for sure. Then we're fine with the whole Kirubi thing, Naruto asked as he stopped in front of the Okage Tower. Yeah, I mean, who cares? You're still you, so it's all good by me, Sakura replied indifferently. Sasuke just got closer. Wow, they really accept me, how nice. I was worried that I would be rejected like the rest of the village, Naruto thought happily. In a rare moment of curiosity, Sasuke asked, So Naruto, who is your mother? Her name was Kushina Uzumaki. I really don't know much about her, but I plan to find out about her. Naruto replied. Inside the Okage Tower. After stacking the mission report, the secretary looked at them with a bored expression. I have to inform all genin that the Chunin exams will be held in 6 months, so get ready and fight for the will of fire. He finished the sentence reluctantly, keeping the same monotonous voice throughout the short speech, which he evidently did not like to deliver. As if it was a later note, he said, Oh, and Okage-sama too. He also ordered me to tell Team 7 to report to him immediately after arriving. Location office. Wow, what a story. It's a big loss for sure. Kakashi was not only a great asset to our village, but he was also a good man and enjoyed his company. His funeral will be held in 3 days, and he should have his new sensei the next day. Sarutobi said as he looked at the young team. Seeing their dejected looks, he dismissed them to fend for themselves. Naruto, stay, Sarutobi said sternly. As Sasuke and Sakura were leaving, he took a puff on his pipe to calm down, and then started talking again. I see you know your ancestry. It was very irresponsible of Kakashi to inform you about that. Why is that? Is it really that bad for me to know about my heritage? Naruto shouted. You must understand that it was your safety. Yes, I understand. My father had many enemies, but you understand how many times I cried all night when I was younger. Because the villagers mistreated me or physically abused me. The other orphans at least had an orphanage protector to comfort them. I had nothing. Naruto finished on the verge of tears. Sarutobi's features warmed up considerably, and he tried to comfort the vulnerable boy. Naruto, I'm so sorry, I wish I could have been there for you more often, and I had no idea how much this meant to you. But you must understand that you can't tell anyone about this. No. The secrets are over. I'm sick of all of them. I want to release the knowledge of my heritage and the Kyuubi that is sealed inside me. Naruto exclaimed seriously. Fine, but I will do it a week before the Chunin exams. But only if your Jounin sensei gives me a positive evaluation during the 6 months, but for now, I would like to see your Sharingan. Fulfilled Naruto by lifting his headband to show his right eye. Saruto and stared in amazement at the black and white Sharingan from which it could only be assumed that the Kyuubi chakra emanated. It looked pretty scary. Is that Madara's Mangekyo Sharingan? Naruto, and what the hell is wrong with your eye? Well, Kyuubi had the courage to try to destroy my eye right after the surgery, which resulted in that strange color. Then I lost consciousness and found Kyuubi in my mind. Then we had a battle of wills, I guess. Then Kyuubi pushed me back, and I felt my Sharingan going crazy. I looked him in the eyes, and he started shouting things about Madara and getting out of my control. Then it turned into a whirlpool and was absorbed by my eye. Naruto finished speaking and inhaled deeply. Naruto, I think I know why you absorbed the Kyuubi. The Sharingan has the ability to control the Biju. Madara Uchiha, the greatest Uchiha, and one of the most important shinobi in Konoha until his defection, was the only Uchiha able to control the Biju. In addition, the Uzumaki are descendants of the Senju clan, who also had the ability to control the Biju. Although Esirama Senju, the Shodai Myokage, was the only one capable of doing so. Finally, the Uchiha and the Senju are said to be descendants of Rikudo Sennin, creator of the Biju. It's amazing if there's anyone capable of controlling the Biju, that's you. You. Sarutobi finished a nice bite. And if Rofilmao could not resist. Sarutobi then took out a scroll and passed it to Naruto. There you will find information about the Uzumaki clan, Uzusio Gakure, and your mother. The Sandai gave me a big puff on his pipe, ready to fire Naruto. I have a request. First, I would like a scroll about all the techniques of the Sharingan. Because I know there is more than just reading moves second and copying techniques. And I would like a book about Uchiha Madara and the Rikudo Sennin. How ironic that on such a sad day it could be so sunny. He didn't come. A lot of people at the funeral, about 30. The 9 rookies, a team a year older than them, their Jounin sensei, the Sandame, and a lot of Anbu that Naruto could only assume that Kakashi had led at some point in his life, and a man with a white mane that he. Coming from the back were most of the prisoners. The Sandai spoke a few words of respect to me, and then people came up to lay flowers grown, especially by the Yamanaka clan. And so it was all over. The way home seemed very fast to him, because he was so lost, that now he was lying on the bed looking at the ceiling, only wearing his shorts. And then everything fell into place for Naruto, and he made a decision that would rule him for the rest of his life. I must become strong for my precious people. As long as I can help it, none of my precious people will die unjustly. My training starts tomorrow, and this ninja shit is no joke. It's time to show people what Naruto Uzumaki can do. The Hinchiriki thought with determination. Kajeben without Senjutsu. And with that, Naruto summoned 10 clones, and took out his Sharingan scroll and 5 copies of the book about Madara and the Rikudo Sennin. There are 15 chapters in both books, each one will read 3 chapters. I want that knowledge in 3 hours. Let's get started, he ordered Naruto. Luckily, Sarutobi added a note to one of the books, informing him of the Shadow Clone's trick. It will be very useful in the long run. Then Naruto opened the Sharingan scroll. Ah, this seems like a good place to start. Tsukiyomi. Tsukiyomi. When performing the Tsukiyomi, the Sharingan user must look into the opponent's eyes, and the opponent must look into his own. Then, you need to imagine that the person is absorbed by your left eye. Note: the Menyekyo Sharingan is required. Okay, easy, I wish I had a fucking left Sharingan. Anyway, screw it, I'll try with the right eye. It would be too useful to let it go by torturing someone in my dream world for hours and seconds. Naruto summoned another clone sitting in front. People to him. Well, look at me in the eyes, or rather, in the eye, heh. The clone obeys. Here we go. And then the clone turned into a whirlpool and was absorbed by his eye. A couple of minutes later, his clone dissipated and regained his memories, and then fainted. Hindsight. The Naruto clone looked around, taking in all the details of the place where he was, although it wasn't much. The only notable feature of the place was that the moon or the sun had a yin-yang detail. The sky was the same gray color as his chakra, and the grass was completely black. The grass also stretched endlessly to the horizon. Ninjin. A familiar voice growled dangerously. Without noticing the turn, Naruto uttered 3 words. Oh God, Kami, and then she turned to meet something that was quickly becoming a fearsome nemesis. Kakakirobi, Naruto stutter. There, crouching about 60 meters away, was the most powerful Biju of all, with his 9 tails spread out on his back. An extremely condensed ball of vile red demonic chakra, with all the tails concentrated. As if they were supplying him with chakra. The clone did the first thing that came to mind, he ran away to save his short life. Ha ha, my container is pretty amazing. It trapped me in a Sharingan-induced void, but as I said during our first meeting, I escaped from your control in 8 years to be exact, so train, you will need it. Haha, when you sucked me in, you basically made the seal holding me deactivated, so there won't be anything to save you from my wrath. When I get free and next time I won't hold back, our battle will be legendary, second only to the original Bijal. And the first one of a you annoying ninja, but for now this should suffice my strongest technique, Zenryoku, Wekusi, and Kika. Total power, planetary vaporization. The clone didn't stand a chance. He had managed to get quite far away, but the second the devastating ball left the focal point of the Kirugi's tails, it grew to half the size of Konoha and twice the height of the walls. When the ball hit the ground, it was like a hot knife cutting butter, leaving a valley hundreds of meters deep in its wake. Like I said, the clone didn't stand a chance. End of the flashback. Wow, Naruto said when he woke up. That battle doesn't look like it's going to go in my favor. From what I've seen so far, all the more reason to get stronger. He looked around his room, but didn't see any of his clones. At least I got a new technique from that encounter. Well, let's see what I've learned so far, Naruto thought curiously. I quickly found a summary that his clones came for all the most important facts. Madara Uchiha, co-founder of Konohagakure, the strongest of the Uchiha clan, also its leader at that time. Master of the Kubino Kitsune, was the first. In unlocking the Menyekyo Sharingan, due to the prolonged use of the evolved Sharingan, he became blind. So his brother gave him his Menyekyo Sharingan so that he could properly lead the clan. This caused him to unlock the eternal Menyekyo Sharingan, which gave him the ability to access the Jin January chakra. It is said that he became arrogant with all the power he had and challenged the Okage Shadame with the Kirugi. The Shadame subdued him, and his wife, Mito Uzumaki, sealed him in her. Madara and Esirama then proceeded to battle. Both ended up badly beaten, but Mito saved the Shadame and left Madara for dead. His battlefield is now known as the Valley of the End. And then an illustration of the eternal Menyekyo Sharingan appeared in his head. Wait, that looks a lot like my Sharingan. The Rikudo Sennin was a priest who appeared in times of endless war, discovered the chakra, and tried to use his power to attract. In La Paz, he spread his ideas and religion, that is, the shinobi forms. He possessed the legendary Dujutsu, the Rinnegan, which allowed him to access the Jin-Yang chakra and all the elements. He saved the world from the ten-tailed beast, the Jurugi, by sealing it into himself, which gave him a divine chakra that earned him. He gave the same nickname as the Sandai Myokai, Shinobi no Kami. The creature was so strong that it would be released when it died, so he created a technique using Jin-Yang chakra called Izanagi, and divided the Viju chakra into portions that became the Moderna Viju. On his deathbed, he chose his youngest son as his successor, which caused his eldest son to attack him. This became the Moderna dispute between Uchiha and Senju. Wow, thinking about shinobi like that makes you realize how low you are in the hierarchy. They have so many achievements, and the Rikudo Sennin influenced the shinobi world a lot, Naruto thought in amazement. Maybe I can also access the Jin January chakra if I really have an eternal Menyekyo Sharingan. I will consult with my new sensei tomorrow. I need to sleep for now. The next day, Team 7 remained in an uncomfortable silence, waiting for their new sensei. The secretary had told them that their sensei was meeting with the Sandame. Naruto, extremely bored, decided to start a conversation. So, Sasuke, have you been training with your Sharingan lately? And what do you care, Tobe? Sasuke asked condescendingly. What the fuck, homo? I was wondering if I have a possible training partner, Naruto said. Sasuke had an interested look. Yeah, I've been training with him. I'll probably have 3 Tamo in each eye by the time we get into the Chunin exams. By the way, you never told me what kind of Sharingan you have. Did it mutate because of the fox? Sasuke asked curiously. It's called the Eternal Menyekyo Sharingan, and yes, it mutated. Because the fox decided that it would be a good idea to turn Maya into paste with his chakra, but in the end, he only improved it. Naruto explained. It didn't take long for Sasuke to throw out another question. What does it do, and how do I get it? I still don't really know what it does, it's still a work in progress, but to get it, for normal Uchiha, you have to first get the Menyekyo Sharingan, then surgically remove the eyes, and then implant the eyes of your brother in your own basins. Heh heh, lucky me I guess. Naruto finished. All the more reason I'll kill him, but speaking of the Menyekyo. And how do I get the Menyekyo Sharingan? Sasuke asked. Well, Madara and Izuna got theirs by killing in the name of the Uchiha clan. It shouldn't be too difficult for you, since yours is the pride of the clan, Naruto said. Before Sasuke could reflect on this, the doors of the Hokage's office opened. There, standing there, with an approximate height of 1.90 meters, was a man dressed in the usual attire of a leaf jounin. Although there were a couple of details that would distinguish him from the crowd. First, a large metal foil symbol on his bulletproof vest, to the left of the chest. Second, some red marks coming down from both his eyes. Third, a large scroll tied horizontally to the back. Fourth, a headband with spikes coming out of it, and the engraved oil box. And finally, a long white mane that went down his back. Brat, you should consider yourself lucky because from now on you are under the tutelage of the legendary Jiraiya, the greatest of the Sannin, summoner of the Mountain Toad Sages, and, most importantly, a certified man. Training Camp 23 was a relatively quiet area. It didn't have many trees, but big rocks and a stream running through it. This terrain was meant to give the Konoha shinobi more experience in dealing with different countries, although most preferred to carry on with business as usual. But the TG-23 was about to turn up the volume a lot, because the new Team 7 sensei had officially claimed it as his. And that's where we found our young Hinshiriki. Hirai was already standing on his new equipment on a rock, watching. To the novice genin. Well, now that we have come this far, I would like to share with you the 2 reasons why my sensei asked me to train you, Jiraiya said calmly. First, it's because of you, he said pointing to Naruto. My apprentice was your father, and he always wanted me to train you, so I guess he is now. A good time to start. Actually, boy, I'm your fucking grandfather, he said. Really? My father was trained by a Sannin, who is my grandfather, and who is also about to be my sensei. What's going on these days, huh? Naruto thought dumbfounded. And the second reason, that they will find it quite funny. Let's just say that they have a lot of similarities with the Sannin, and my sensei noticed, so he wants them to become the next Sannin. Won't it be fun? Needless to say, the team had a number of glorified ideas about themselves. What? Finally, without any more restrictions, I will have the opportunity to get enough power to defeat him. I, as strong as Tsunadime, can't wait. Wow, this will be a good step to achieve my new dream, to become the Nidaime Rikudo Sennin. They thought Sasuke, Sakura and Naruto in that order. Ah, but we'll have to have a friendly training with a server first, to see how everyone is doing, Jiraiya said. I hope you came prepared, you can use whatever techniques you want, because I'm going to crush you anyway. Until tomorrow, it starts. Naruto lifted the shield from his forehead. Who was hiding his eternal Sharingan Mangekyou? I've been waiting to try this bad boy. He looked around, and saw that Sasuke already had his Sharingan active, and Sakura had some shurikens ready to shoot them at any moment. Hirai has already whistled. Wow. To users of Sharingan. I wonder how I will be able to control them, Hiraya said sarcastically. Suddenly, Sasuke made a couple of hand seals. Katen. Gakaki Unojutsu. Sasuke threw a huge fireball at the Sannin, who simply jumped after the rock he had stood on to protect himself. Naruto, seeing his chance, jumped high until he had Jiraiya in his sights, who simply waved as the fire cascaded around him. Naruto ran through the stamps he had just copied a few seconds earlier. Katen. Gakaki Unojutsu. He exhaled a fireball 3 times larger than Sasuke's, due to his intense chakra. There's no way he could have escaped that one, he thought as he landed. Suddenly, some hands emerged from the ground and attracted him, while the owner of the hands was pulled out. I'm a Sannin for the love of Kami, you really expected me to be defeated so easy. This new generation thinks it's a big deal, doesn't it? Jiraiya said exasperated. He jumped when 6 shurikens hit the place he occupied a moment ago. Sasuke and Sakura landed next to him immediately after and started lifting him off the ground. Sasuke, you'll have to distract him for a while Akura flanks him from the right, and I'll take that opportunity to close the deal. Okay. They both nodded. All right, let's go. Sasuke, wasting no time, quickly swung and threw a kyune. His sensei saw him coming and moved away, but just in time, another burst of shurikens caught up with him, forcing him to maneuver awkwardly to dodge them. Then, Sasuke threw another jutsu before he could regain his balance. Katen, Ryuka no Jutsu. Sasuke exclaimed, releasing a huge burst of fire that reached his sense. And in 2 seconds, but Jiraiya only needed a second to escape, appearing next to Sasuke, waiting for him to try to start a taijutsu combat. To his surprise, his student jumped away from him. Naruto stood on a particularly tall rock with his hands crossed, palms facing Jiraiya, creating another jutsu on the spot, Chakra. A terrifying chakra ray flew towards Jiraiya and fatally struck him, creating a huge explosion. Team 7 gathered and waited for the smoke to clear. When he did, he only saw a big puddle of red liquid. Oh no, Naruto. What have you done? We killed a Sannin. We will go to jail, or worse, we will be executed. No, 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 no. I refuse to be imprisoned for the rest of my life. Sakura was interrupted by a raucous laugh. Ha, ha. What a great joke. I made her a kawarimi with a can of red paint I had hidden, and it worked. The whole team suspected relieved. Well, they did well, but in the end they lost, Jiraiya commented. Naruto intervened. How did we lose? We can still fight. That's not what these guys have to say. Suddenly, 3 Jirailas appeared behind them, with kune on their throats. Don't worry, they did well for a rookie. Be sure to come tomorrow and get ready for a 5.5-month camp. That's when the real training starts. Again. Katen. Karyuenden no Jutsu. Sasuke shouted. A large dragon made of fire flew out of its mouth, hitting a rock and creating an explosion on contact. Katen. Gakakyu no Jutsu. Sakura shouted, letting a decent-sized fireball come out of her mouth, causing a result. Very similar to Sasuke's. Katen. Ryujindoki no Jutsu. Naruto shouted, shooting 7 large fireballs at the same rock. Nothing was left but debris. Well done, Sakura. You were neglecting the physical exercises, but your chakra capacity has increased to an acceptable level. I hope you try harder. A 20-minute break, and then we will work on chakra control. Naruto, you are working on the yin-yang release of your chakra, Jiraiya ordered. He had only been a sensei once, but he had not lost his talent for turning ordinary genin into his person. Soldiers. Naruto and his team had been training non-stop for almost a month, resting only on Sundays. They had been camping in Jiraiya's cozy handmade cabin. Naruto had also discovered his powerful chakra. Being so strong, it was almost palpable, which made it much easier to control. The fact of not having the QB on his label also contributed to this. Therefore, he did not work on chakra control or augmentation with his team, but focused on dividing it into its very essence. The yin and the yang. She had started 7 days ago, working with 29 of her chakras a day. He hadn't made much progress yet. His Sharingan allowed him to see the difference between the chakras when he meditated for a long time, but he could not separate them. It required immense concentration. Well, I can't relax, so let's get to work. When Naruto was about to go to a quiet area and summon his clones to meditate with him, Jiraiya already called them. Oh, I almost forgot. We have a B-rank mission tomorrow, so the training will end early today. Naruto was a little excited, but he couldn't let that ruin his meditation, so he did some breathing exercises and summoned 29 clones and got to work. The next day, Team 7 entered the office of the Hokage in the early afternoon. Hey sensei, how was your day? I'm sure it's pretty boring. Jiraiya exclaimed cheekily. And Ruzan just sighed. Jiraiya, what are you doing here? You know this is not the place to get missions. Yeah, but I doubt they'll give us a B-rank quest. That's why I'm coming to you. I need a note so I can get one. Jiraiya said, calming down. What makes you think your team is ready for that responsibility? His record is only 23D ranks and won a rank, the Hokage said calmly. Yes, but they've been under my tutelage for 3.5 weeks. All the skills they have acquired should be put to the test at least twice a month, Irizan said, staring at him. I'll tell you one thing. If we fail in the mission you gave us, we will make ranks 4 times a week, until you consider us ready for a higher rank. The face of Team 7 turned pale. Oh no, he didn't. The whole team thought in unison. That really is a worthwhile deal. Seeing the mighty Jiraiya working on the house, he accepts your bet, and I raise the bet. You can't help the team unless the situation is serious, and if it gets that bad, you fail the bet. If they complete the quest, I will give you any quest you ask for, except the S-rank ones. Jiraiya's face darkened a little upon hearing that, but she regained her posture quickly. I accept. Well, here's your note. Have fun, Sarutobi said with an ear-to-ear grin. Office of the mission. What's the matter, Sambai? Naruto exclaimed as they entered the large room. Sambai simply gave him a lazy look. You're not a punk at all. Nothing but your mom, Naruto replied. Sambai, the lazy Chunin, rolled his eyes, and then Jiraiya spoke. We are here for a B-rank mission. Here is Lokagesima's note, which grants us a special permission. Jiraiya said while throwing the note. Sambai caught it deftly, and glanced at it before nodding slightly. Here is a rank B beginner level, enjoy it. Jiraiya read it quickly, and then looked at his team. All right, guys, we've got 2 hours to get ready for a medium close quarter / stealth combat mission that will last 2 weeks. At the gates of the village. Naruto was reflecting on the mission they had been given. It was a textbook mission, really. A group of 5 renegade ninjas continuously robbed a temple in the Land of Fire. 8 of the combat monks fought against them. 4 of them died, but the surviving monks estimated that their strength was around the level of a genin. With a decent amount of experience. Their job was to hide, and, when the opportunity presented itself, they killed as many as they could to slightly match the number. And if they were discovered, they entered into combat. Then they had to cut off their heads and give them to the monks so that they could raise some money. Okay, are you ready to go? Jiraiya asked. Team 7 nodded, and they set off at Shinobi's pace. 3 days later, Team 7, excluding Jiraiya, who was only going to observe them, was hiding in a tree. During the late evening hours overlooking the temple courtyard. The courtyard consisted of a large pond and a quiet garden. It also had a door leading to the temple treasury. This is the time the thieves were supposed to show up. Where the hell are they? Naruto thought angrily. Then he remembered Jiraiya-sensei's advice. Never lose your cool on a mission. A cool head equals a complete mission most of the time. Words to live by, Naruto thought. So Naruto held on and looked at Sasuke and Sakura, who were on both sides. They both seemed a little frustrated, but since they couldn't talk, at the risk of revealing their position, they had to put up with each other as well. And that's when Sakura made hand signals. They are coming to the north of the courtyard, this is it. Naruto thought with some emotion. There were a total of 7 shinobi dressed in completely black suits. It was obvious that they had recruited a couple of people, which made things difficult. Naruto looked at Sasuke for confirmation, and he nodded. Naruto then proceeded to take out 3 kunai with shock tags, specially made by Jiraiya, designed to paralyze rather than explode. He threw them right in the middle of the group, and then he could start his first real mission. 3 shinobi were caught in the blast wave, and Sasuke finished them off with shurikens on the head. The other 4 shinobi quickly locked onto their position. Suten, Goyu Bakusai. A dense stream of water came out of the mouth of the shortest with incredible force. Team 7 jumped out of the tree in time to save itself from the attack, which broke it into pieces. The 3 Konoha ninjas stood in front of the 4 enemy renegade ninjas, waiting for the other to take the first step. Suddenly, the renegade ninja on the left was knocked to the ground, while the others jumped, dodging the hands that shot out from the ground. Naruto threw a cradle and immobilized the enemy, killing him quickly. I grabbed the little one, Naruto whispered before charging at the shinobi. Naruto threw a punch at the short ninja, who caught him waiting for his teammates to finish work. They were about to do so when Sakura and Sasuke interrupted them. Naruto attempted a leg sweep, but the ninja simply outran him, then turned around and attacked with an axe kick. While Naruto was crouching, Naruto raised his forearm to block the attack, while at the same time reaching for his bag of weapons, pulling out a crib, and trying to stab his leg. The renegade ninja manipulated the leg so that it only received a superficial cut. Both shinobi pushed each other to gain distance. It's time to get serious, Naruto said. She lifted her headband to reveal her Sharingan eye, which she began to twirl excitedly. The shinobi's eyes opened a little, but they immediately returned to normal. Naruto made a couple of stamps quickly. Katen, Ryuka no Jutsu. Naruto shouted, expelling a huge flame. The other ninja made his own stamps. Suten, Suinjineki no Jutsu. A large amount of water gushed out from the nearby pond and formed a wall, just in time, to prevent the fire jutsu from reaching it. Naruto was about to run around the steam created by the clash of the two jutsus when he saw his opponent in the air, running through them at full speed. Suten. Goyo Bakusai no Jutsu. Naruto pulled away in time, but a rock from the debris of the explosion hit him in the shoulder, dislocating it. After placing him in his place, the shinobi began to charge at him. That hurt, he'll pay for it. Bad idea, getting into a taijutsu match with a Sharingan user. This battle is over. It seems that Sasuke and Sakura are also breaking up. The renegade ninja threw the first punch, but Naruto had interpreted his moves so easily that it was like reading a preschool book. With the help of some Kajibunsen, all the enemy's blows were easily blocked with minimal effort. It was an amazing experience for Naruto, so much so that it became a game for him. But he soon got bored of the game, which was detrimental to his opponent. Naruto just grabbed a punch and threw it back, and then he took advantage of his opponent's momentum against him, and dug his knee into his stomach. Then he pulled out a crib and stuck it in the canio to the renegade ninja. Just when Sasuke and Sakura had just finished their battles, Jiraiya also landed in the courtyard, slowly clapping his hands. Good job. They have made a lot of progress. From now on, a B-rank mission awaits them, and then an A-rank mission once a month. Now, let's behead them and hand them over to the monks. Team 7's faces paled, and Jiraiya simply listened. We should reach Konoha in 2 days if we only stop once, so let's get going. Jiraiya shouted. 4 months after starting his training with his incredibly strong sensei, Naruto noticed how much the overall strength of Team 7 increased. Their teamwork was always pushed to the limit with exercises against Jiraiya in many different scenarios, and the individual skills of the team members were also not lacking in the slightest. Last month, Jiraiya introduced a new aspect to his training, elemental manipulation. Naruto discovered that he had an affinity with fire, Sasuke with lightning, and Sakura with water. Of all of them, Sasuke seemed the most skilled in his element, but Naruto was not far behind. Sasuke was on his third and final step, where he had to prevent a ball of condensed electricity from exploding for 10 seconds. More difficult than it looks. Sasuke was only 2 seconds in. Naruto was on his second step of fire manipulation, where I had to get the flame of a lighter to reach 30 centimeters long. With his shadow clones, he managed to reach 23 centimeters in a week. I would have finished by now, but I was also working on other things. He practiced Jin-Yang manipulation 1 week, then Jutsu the next, Taijutsu after, and finally, this new training was introduced. So he had it at the bottom of his list. The reason he devoted so much time to a single topic was because he promised himself that he would never let another comrade die like his former sensei, so he needed to strengthen himself. The sword he had chosen was an ordinary katana. The only differences were the completely black blade, made to be extremely durable, and its chakra channeling properties. Naruto intended this sword to be as well known as himself. He named her Sekirjo, loneliness, to represent her childhood before she found her precious people. His most horrible experiences happened in his childhood, but he could not forget them, because they were what strengthened him. His Sharingan, well, at first he planned to be humble about it, treating it as a simple tool. Shinobi. But he was so powerful. His chances were incredible. He could use Matarasu, and the hypnotization induced by his eye was impressive. The ability of his eye to absorb people was quite terrifying. And it would be the most terrifying experience for whoever was absorbed to find out that, with whom he shared the vacuum induced by the Sharingan. Naruto, unfortunately, discovered a serious weakness in his Sharingan. I could only use it for 4 minutes at the most. The reason was that, by working with the Kirugi chakra, it could easily influence him. After a minute of use, I could hear their insane whispers that burned, killed, and mutilated. After 2 minutes, it was as if the Kyuubi was shouting in his ear. After 3 minutes, the Kyuubi chakra began to manifest. Once he had dared to exceed 4 minutes. 30 seconds later, he felt the Kyuubi taking control of his body manually. He remembered the enormous effort it took to raise his hand and cover his demonic eye. His manipulation, Jin Yang, did not achieve anything and quickly. I could see the two energies, but I couldn't separate them. He had been trying for approximately 6,700 hours if we count his Kajibansin, which is logical. And I was still getting no results. It was incredibly frustrating. But Naruto realized that he was doing it wrong, so, with a lot of effort, he decided to leave it for now. Naruto's ninjutsu was extremely strange. She mastered many basic offensive and defensive jutsus, as they were necessary to survive as a child, but Naruto used his chakra techniques much more. Why is that? Because with a little mental clarity, the opportunities were endless. Attack, defense, containment, housework, you name it, he thought about it, and his unusually strong chakra got it. Well, not exactly like that. You see, it took him time and concentration to perform any complex movement he created mentally, which made him dangerous in combat. But his most basic moves could be executed in a second, so while the enemy was making seals, Naruto could be throwing pure chakra burst over and over again. Naruto had also adopted a new outfit, a black ori with a red interior that reached to the middle of his thigh. This highlighted her chest and abdomen, which would be defined more and more every day. He was girded by a red sash, and he crossed the sash of his back with the grip to the right to draw quickly with the right hand. He was wearing baggy gray shinobi pants, cinched by black bands that started at his shins. To top it off, he was wearing Jetta, like Jiraiya-sensei. Hey, idiot, react. I'm trying to explain something to you. Jiraiya shouted with contempt. Naruto looked up and saw his sensei furious at being ignored. He was about to give a very powerful jutsu to himself and his companions, or something like that. And Naruto started reflecting on his progress of the last few months. Oh, I'm sorry, I think I got lost in my own awesomeness, Naruto said calmly, since that was basically what he actually did. Yeah, whatever, now let's go with the jutsu, he said excitedly, pulling out 3 scrolls from the inside of his Hounen vest. Sasuke and Naruto, I'm sure Kakashi would have wanted them to have this technique. After all, you need the Sharingan to be effective. It was his original jutsu, the Chidori, he said solemnly, as he handed them the scrolls. Naruto and Sasuke seemed honored to be able to use their sensei's signature move. Naruto, this move was your father's signature move, a jutsu that only 2 people have mastered, me and your father. Although Kakashi also learned it, but as he taught everyone, there is a difference between learning and mastering. It's called Rasengan, I'll show it to you personally. Jiraiya said. Naruto was definitely excited, as Jiraiya considered him ready to learn one of his father's personal jutsus. Jiraiya-sensei, what about me? I don't also get a great and powerful jutsu? Sakura asked, as excited as her other 2 companions. Oh, Sakura, you see, I just don't like you, so I won't show you anything. Sorry, the girl with pink hair looked like she was about to cry, and the guys looked like they were ready to get rough. Then Jiraiya let out a thunderous laugh. I'm just kidding. They must think very little of me if they thought I'd leave her hanging like that. Anyway, your reserves have increased enough that you can learn his Iton. Your Iryuden, he said, handing her the scroll. Jiraiya was about to send them off to return to their usual training, when he heard the distinctive noise of a shunsin and looked towards an ambu standing a few meters above him. Hiraya-sama, Okage-sama, request your presence immediately. He said to mention Akatsuki, and he would understand. Hiraya's eyes widened considerably before he calmed down. I understand, he was about to leave, but the ambo stopped him. Okage-sama also ordered me to take his students to a safe place. With your permission, sir, he said earnestly. Jiraiya looked at his team, who couldn't hear the conversation. She watched them all, her gaze lingered on Naruto a little more than on the others, worried. Agreed, but you must protect them with your life and nothing less, Jiraiya said firmly. Understood, Jiraiya-sama, greeted the ambo. Jiraiya turned around and gave orders to his team, as if they were on a mission. All right, follow this man, no questions asked, understood. The 3 of them nodded. There is Jiraiya-sensei, they said, recognizing his mission voice. As Jiraiya was walking away with his Shunsin, the Ambo said, "All right, let's hurry up, we don't have much time to waste." And then they left for the forest. 5 minutes later, the Ambo had taken them to a remote clearing in the forest, and then it stopped, and seemed as if it was waiting. "Ha ha ha, your genjutsu never ceases to amaze me. A mission completed without barely lifting a finger." A deep voice spoke from somewhere in the forest. "Yes, it seems so," replied a calm, cool voice. Then two figures appeared, both wearing capes. Black and red clouds. The tallest one had a strange bluish complexion, and carried a big lump on her back with a handle. It seemed to be a sword. The last thing that was noticeable was the hidden fog headband, pierced by a cut. The shorter of the two had much less striking features, except for his amazing step. With Sasuke. He also had two curved wrinkles under each eye. "Kiss him," finished the drone. The shorter of the two ordered in a voice devoid of emotion. "Roger that." The excited man replied, grabbing the hilt of his sword, and disappearing a moment later. He appeared in front of the Ambu, who did nothing, still trapped in the shorter man's genjutsu, and lowered his powerful sword with such force that the man's head sank down to the neck. The man known as Kisum got injured and pointed his sword at Naruto, without even looking twice at the brutal murder he had just committed. "Come with us, boy, and I will send your companions back with only 1 or 2 arms less, instead of half," he said haughtily, smiling sardonically all the time. Naruto couldn't help but feel afraid of this man, of the feeling of absolute power emanating from him, and how he could kill without blinking. I was recording the QB a little bit, but thinking about how weak he was compared to the fox, Naruto felt that he could really stand up to him. But of course, it was just a feeling. Perhaps he saw me that the boy's gaze was becoming determined. "Oh, so you want to fight, huh? Well, if you want, come and get her." Naruto was trying to stay calm, but this man was trying to piss him off on purpose, and it had been a while since anyone had done that. So it was unexpected. So Naruto countered, "What are you? The son of a garbage man and a shark. They must be up to something really crazy in Kiri, huh?" Naruto shouted. The temperature had dropped a couple of degrees in the clearing as the murderous intent reached disproportionate levels. "No one insults my mother," Kisum said with pure hatred permeated in the voice. He prepared his sword in a posture designed exclusively for speed. "He's going to carry us. Here I come." She screamed, but before she could move, she had to throw her head back when a crib and flew past right where her head was. "I am very lucky that my training camp was so close to this little meeting. I've already sent a falcon messenger to the place of our destination. File, so I suggest you leave while you can," said a shinobi who appeared in front of the students. She was wearing a pineapple-style brown ponytail and Jounin's usual outfit. He had a scar on his nose. "Iruka-sensei," Naruto said confused. Disclaimer of liability. Naruto doesn't belong to me. 30. Iruka-sensei. "I can't believe you're a Jounin now. I never thought you were strong enough," Sakura shouted despite the gravity of the situation. Iruka probably would have sweated up a drop if it hadn't been for Sasuke shouting the name of his brother, obviously tired of being ignored by the most hated thing in his existence. "Itachi." "Sasuke, wait." Naruto tried to stop him, but to no avail. Sasuke had his Sharingan on with 2 Tamo in each eye. "I had just finished the stamps for a Karyu Yenden." He exhaled as he shouted out his true feelings towards his only brother. "He dies." The dragon came out with more ferocity than usual. To everyone, it looked as if Itachi had been burned to a crisp. But when Sasuke put out the flames with his wool, all that was left were the charred remains. Famitsuchi Bunsen. Itachi appeared behind Sasuke, ready to deal him a devastating kick to the jaw. Before his attack reached its target, Naruto appeared in front of Itachi, blocking him with both forearms, with his only Sharingan eye on. Interesting, Itachi thought. Naruto then switched arms slightly so that he could grab Itachi's leg. "Sakura, do it," Naruto ordered frantically. "Okay, Suten. Equita and Yuri no Jutsu," Sakura shouted as she finished her seals, spitting water from her mouth that took the shape of a spear. As she advanced at high speed with the intention of skewering her target, Itachi. Just before I could catch up to him, the other boy, Kisum, decided to stop watching his partner having fun. He jumped in front of the spear with his sword as a shield. Unexpectedly, the spear seemed to brush the sword, without causing harm, as if the chakra had been removed. Shit, that's not good. I had no idea his weapon was so unique, Sakura thought, worried about her companions. Totan, Tsuchina, and Funojutsu. Iruka finished, causing small pieces of sharp, hardened earth to rise up and fly towards the two nuclear ninjas. They both jumped in time, looking back to make sure their target didn't take damage from the jutsu. When they saw both genin burst into clouds of smoke when they were reached, they turned their eyes towards the novice Junin. Seeing that he and the pink-haired genin weren't there either, they realized that they had been tricked. Come on, back up. Where are they? Iruka muttered angrily. He and Team 7 had sprinted out to safety, though Sasuke reluctantly did so. No more than 30 seconds had passed when Iruka felt a firm hand grabbing his throat. Team 7 also stopped, watching in fear what was about to happen to their sensei. He looked down and saw red pupils with a pinwheel design. Enough of the games, Tsukiyomi, Itachi whispered. A few seconds later, Itachi closed his eyes and opened them again, revealing his onyx eyes again. He pulled out a crib and prepared to finish what he had started. The three members of Team 7 tried to move forward, desperate to save their teacher. But they were scattered again after a few quick punches and kicks from Kisame. For Naruto, everything seemed to be going in slow motion, while the kunai violently sank into Iruka's caning. No, not again. I've failed you, big brother, Naruto said as a tear slipped silently from his Sharingan eye. Sasuke cried out in pain, covering his eyes. The extreme guilt of not being able to save another innocent from the monster that was his brother made his eye change and alter. Until finally, he discovered himself showing his Sharingan Mangekyou. Previously, look for the image you prefer, because I'm not going to explain it. How lazy, lol. Sakura couldn't help herself, she collapsed on the floor, crying her eyes out. Naruto probably would have tried to comfort her, but he was also going through a lot of mental stress. As the two Akatsuki members were preparing to stop Naruto, a loud and authoritative voice entered the clearing. Stop! Stop! Shouted the Sandame with his full battle gear, and next to him was Jiraiya, from the Sannin. Most shinobi would be really scared if they faced these two fearsome ninjas. However, Hitachi saw it as a setback. They would just retire and try another day. I'll take the Sannin, Kisame said with a confident smile on his face. No, this is a battle that may or may not end in our defeat. We are leaving, Itachi replied calmly. Itachi threw Iruka's body to the ground. The Konoha ninjas looked down and discovered that Iruka's body was adorned with 10 explosive plates. Shit! Jiraiya cursed as he grabbed Sakura and quickly escaped. Sasuke retreated alone, while Sarutobi was forced to grab Naruto, who remained on his knees, staring at the flaming explosive tags with a glance. Dead? After the explosion, the group returned to the clearing and discovered that the nuclear ninjas had long since left. There were splashes of blood all over the clearing, coming from the same spot where Iruka's body was. I'm sorry for your losses, guys. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask me. Take 2 weeks off, for now the old man and I have to look for you, he said with a dejected look, seeing his students suffer the death of another close friend. And with that, Jiraiya and the Hokage left in the direction where they thought the Akatsuki members were headed. A week later, Naruto sat on his bed, staring at the shiny object in his hand. It was Iruka's headband. He fiddled with it a little. He deserved it. He promised not to let anyone close to him die as long as he could help it. And yet, it happened again. He deserved to be a shinobi if he couldn't fulfill an oath he had taken himself. Before I could ponder these dark thoughts any further, there was a knock at the door. As he opened, he felt a surge of pink light. Sakura, what are you doing here? Naruto asked confused. Well, I came to check on you after. Iruka, well, you know. Sakura said looking down a little depressed. Oh, I see. Well, come in if you want. Have you seen Sasuke lately? I'm worried about how he'll be after meeting his brother, Naruto asked curiously. A sour look crossed his face. Sasuke, he has changed. I saw him at our training camp. He has become darker, if that is even possible. And you know what he told me. She said if I had been faster, I could have killed the missing ninja. She called me weak, she said sadly, sitting on Naruto's leather sofa. You're not weak, don't listen to him, she replied calmly as she poured some tea for both of them. Thanks Naruto, to think I could have killed Itachi, I mean he's a S-ran. Itachi, that's his name. He spoke without even looking up from his teacup that he had started drinking from. When he put it down, he started talking again. I'll kill him, he said, and then started drinking you again. A week later, there they were again, Team 7 gathered on the rocky fields, which was the 23rd training camp. Nothing really changed, except for Sasuke and Naruto's appearances. Sasuke was now walking with his fully active Sharingan, with 3 Tamo in each eye. Naruto now wore a straw hat that hid his eyes. Naruto also seemed to lack emotion in his facial features. There was an awkward silence until the distinct sound of a shunsin entered the surroundings. Hi guys, I hope you are well, but I just wanted to let you know that death is a common thing in the shinobi world, and that there is no way to prepare for it, except to become stronger to avoid it. I'm also sorry about your sensei, but that said, we have a month and a half to prepare for Chunnin's exams. And Naruto, don't forget that the old man will reveal your heritage a week before the Chunin exams start, so get to training. Aizensei. They said with passion, ready to get stronger. You know there's no going back now, right? Of course, and I don't plan on coming back anyway. Once the word gets out, you will be included in the bingo books just because of your inheritance. And you will have a lot of Avengers after you. I get it, but I feel like I'm ready for this. Not to mention, I have one of the Sannin as my sensei. It won't be long before I'm in the bingo books for now. More than just my inheritance. The old man chuckled. That's right, well, let's move on. The Sandaime and Naruto went out to a balcony outside the Okage's office. Below them, the entire population of Konoha was in a space reserved for announcements like this. No one except Team 7 knew who the guy in the straw hat was, so they waited in silence for their leader to speak. I come before you today with a very important piece of information. Sarutobi said, boosting his voice with chakra so that everyone could hear him. 13 years ago, our village suffered a very traumatizing attack. The attack of the Kyuubi, which caused us to lose many of our loved ones. Many people became depressed because they had long buried their sadness. Well, I am about to reveal to this generation what really happened that day, as it was kept secret by law. To give a certain person a better life. The younger generation was confused. Why would certain events be kept secret for the sake of one person? The truth is that our Yondaime was not strong enough to defeat the Kyuubi by conventional means, but as a seal master found another way. Sarutobi stopped when he heard the silence of the people. He chose a newborn child and sealed it inside. I wish that this boy would be treated like a hero, because the seal that was put on him would allow him to kill the Kyuubi. Although we all know that it didn't work out that way, Sarutobi said in a firm voice. Many of the previous generation were stunned. They originally believed that the Yondaime had transformed the Kyuubi into a weaker form, or at least that was the generally accepted theory. That's why they mistreated the container, poor thing. Well, the Yondaime would not choose any child for such a fate. No, he chose a kid who he knew could make it, he chose his son. And then Naruto came over, taking off his straw hat. People found it impossible to deny the similarities between the Yondaime and Naruto. I know that many have hurt me, but I forgive them. The people around him burst into cheers, and Naruto smiled. After all the pain and struggle, he finally had a taste of his future. 6 days later. Well, team, you've come a long way from the brats who had only been out of the academy for 6 months. But now it's definitely worth mentioning you as my students, so I give you this. He pulled 3 permits out of his jacket and handed them to his students. They all smiled knowing what they were. Since I know everyone will sign it, I will be the first to say it too. Welcome to Chunin exams. Everyone laughed. During the 6 months, they had become very close, almost like a family. And even after their last tragedy, they had helped each other recover to a great extent. 30. Naruto had separated from his team a few minutes ago. He decided to walk, and that people would smile at him and bow down to him, instead of glaring at him. He always returned the good gestures, but he couldn't help but be a glutton for compliments. I had taken a side street that was fenced off on the sides, with what appeared to be one of the many small woods that resided in Konoha on the outside of the fence. Naruto saw a corner ahead, and, with his hearing sharper than average, he heard sobs, grunts, and the scream of a young woman. He hid his signature and crept forward, as a shinobi should. When he reached the edge, he peeked out and saw 5 figures. A sand shinobi in a catsuit, and his teammate standing behind him, arms crossed. She seemed disgusted by the boy's need to hit his victim, whom he was holding with one hand. In addition, they were carrying 2 large objects on their backs. The victim was Konohamaru, and his 2 friends, Uden and Moji, were behind him, looking terrified at what might happen. Naruto began devising a plan to incapacitate them without killing them. The answer was quite easy. 30. Come on ya Kankuro, leave the poor kid alone, you don't want to piss off the Okage, or worse, Gahara. With a look that showed he was really afraid of this Gahara person. Yes, of course, do you think the Okage would notice a beaten child in such a big village? And as for Gaara, it seemed that even Kankuro was afraid of Gaara. Well, do you remember that he said that he had no interest in being around people like us during his free time? He said bitterly. He raised his fist to dramatize when he suddenly felt something approaching quickly. He channeled chakra into his face to cushion the impact. Sure enough, he flew out through the fence with a punch that would have broken his jaw. He stared at the girl slowly drawing her sword. Tamari was in the process of opening her fan of battle when he froze, and then began to smile confidently. One more move, and I'll kill you and the kids behind us, Naruto heard from behind. He looked back, and saw a spiky red hair on a cold-looking guy, about his height, with a big pumpkin on his back. The boy at least kept his word, for the sand came out of the gourd, which sharpened as it approached him. It probably would have worked if it hadn't been for a wall of pure black chakra that suddenly appeared, blocking the spear. No, you won't, Naruto said from behind the red head. He was about to try to knock him out when a jounin appeared next to Tamari. Stop it. Gaara, Tamari, go get Kanker, and then meet me at the hotel. Gaara, you better not hurt anyone, he spoke in a threatening tone. Gaara only heard about it because Baki was one of the few people he was afraid of, for the ability of his wind sword to cut through the sand. The team finally retreated, and Naruto turned to the 3 children. He took off his hat and smiled. Long time no see, boys, he said warmly. Naruto. They all shouted. 20. After 2 hours of a vigorous game as a child, Naruto was lying on his bed, excited for tomorrow. I was looking forward to seeing the best genin from other villages. I had already seen one who controlled the arena. He just wished he had his Sharingan active to copy that jutsu. He would soon reach his goal. It would be Okage, and Chunin would be just one more step on his way. Team 7 headed to the top floor, where the first exam was scheduled. He had already overcome a Shibu Genjutsu thanks to Sasuke's Sharingan constantly staying active, even though Naruto had told him that he should keep chakra instead, to show off. Sasuke's answer was always that, since his Mangekyo had been activated, keeping his Sharingan active was almost instinctual, and required a fraction of the chakra it required before. Showing off, Naruto thought as he watched Sasuke's back as he crossed the stairs. They came to an empty hallway with a door with the number of the room they were supposed to go to. Well, there you are. Our first step to becoming a Chunin. Aren't they excited? Sakura exclaimed, turning to Sasuke and Naruto. Sasuke had a smile that betrayed his excitement. Naruto simply gave him a gentle smile, his Sage hat hanging on his back, showing his features. Upon entering, they were met by a crowd of genin from all shinobi countries. By the wall, many of his former classmates were sitting. Hey, let's talk about with them. I haven't seen our companions for a while, Sakura said. It was true, as his team had been quite isolated during training. Go Sakura, I have something I'd like to check out, Naruto said, and then walked away into the crowd of shinobi with a purpose. I'm sorry, but I'm curious about a certain ninja. I'll be with you right away, Sasuke said quickly before walking towards a team that had an arrogant-looking Yuga watching them. Brones, I knew they were excited, Sakura thought as she shook her head. Then he walked towards Konoha's group of rookies. 30. You're from a Megacure, right? Naruto asked. I was talking to a guy with straight white hair that came up to his shoulders, maybe a year younger than him, with said headband, who was standing in a corner of the room that people avoided for some strange reason. It was like the kid smelled bad or something, but Naruto knew it wasn't like that. The boy was wearing a long-sleeved gray cape, which probably helped with the rain, and black shinobi sandals. His eyes were also completely black with no pupils, which was strange. Yes, although I'm sure you already knew that, you just wanted to start the conversation, right? What's your name? The boy was somewhat excited, which helped to calm the feeling Naruto had for him. It was a rarity, her chakra was intense, it reminded her of his. I am Naruto Uzumaki, and you are? I'm Enko. Period. Oh my god. You're not good at talking, are you? Do you have any ambitions for the future? I'd like to be as strong as the first shinobi that ever existed, huh? You. Enko's face suddenly became much less cheerful, and Naruto was confused, but he wished the boy's face would return to normal. I wish reality was not so cruel, that reality could be modified, so that the bad moments were good and the good ones perfect. My ambition is that reality is a little more like fantasy. It's a strange ambition, isn't it? But if there's anyone who can pull it off, it's me. That's what my mom told me, she ended with a gloomy tone. He seemed a little sad, but he quickly forgot about it and added something else. Oh, and protect my teammates, no matter what. Naruto was stunned. This guy was eccentric, but also strong. Naruto realized that his past was probably not the best, and he felt that he needed to know more about this boy's full history. Why would his mother inspire him with an ambition that seemed even more impossible than hers? If you don't mind me asking. All right, everyone back to your seats. The Chunin exams have officially started, shouted Morino and Vicky, head of the torture and interrogation branch of Shinobi. 30. Team 7 had passed the first exam quite easily. Thanks to Naruto and Sasuke's visual dexterity, they were able to easily find the Chunin plants and copy their movements to answer all the questions. And Sakura was so smart that she answered all the questions. One would think that her literary intelligence would have weakened after camping for 6 months, but Jiraiya-sensei always made her read. A kind of ninja literature. During the exam, they had sat in a cell, so they had no intention of giving up in front of others when the 10th question came up. They wouldn't have done it anyway. But just after it was all over, the second exam supervisor burst through the window in an extremely eccentric way. And now Team 7 is in a wide clearing with a huge fenced forest that looked quite threatening. Naruto decided to put on his Sage hat. During the speech of the supervisor, who introduced herself as Anko, Naruto couldn't help but think about that strange boy Enko. He wanted to go right where he felt the boy's chakra, which stood out from the crowd. But he would not leave his teammates when a test like this was about to start. I was hoping to get a chance during this exam. Still, he didn't know, because he would have to discuss it with his peers and see if they approved. They went upstairs, signed their resignations, and went to the door that had been assigned to them. Naruto decided to talk about his plans in the forest. Do you remember what I went to see before the first exam? I would like to see him again in this forest. He's an interesting shinobi, is that okay with you? Naruto looked at them. No. That's a totally idiotic trick. You can't go and fight with just one person, because you don't know if your teammates will come together or not. Sakura tried to dissuade Naruto as soon as possible. I don't want to fight with him, I'd like to talk to him, Naruto said simply. Mom, what if he doesn't want to talk? And he and his companions want a scroll? And what about the other teams? Sakura asked, probing to see how far Naruto had come. I don't think so, Naruto said stupidly, patting himself on the face. Top of the hat. But, for some reason, I can feel his chakra quite easily. I'll be able to go straight to him when the time comes, instead of going around looking and alerting others. I say it's okay, just wait until we get our scrolls first, Sasuke interrupted trying. to finish it soon, because I knew Sakura had some more questions ready and prepared. Humph, very well, but you better take care. I wouldn't like to say that I warned you, Sakura said with an angry face. I could never rightly make them change their minds. Because they're both crazy, exclaimed the inner Sakura. Naruto nodded and looked towards the wooded shinobi combat zone. I understood his concern. She was not willing to lose any more valuable people. He was confident in his abilities and those of his team. Nothing in this forest would stop them. Genin, get ready. An intercom above them was the source of the words. There was an echo that indicated that other stations in the door were also listening, but the area between each door was so wide that you couldn't see the Genin cell of the other one. They will be allowed to enter the forest, one team at a time, for 3-second intervals. They will not be allowed to leave the forest for the next 5 days. Please wait for your door to open. Entering before it opens will result in disqualification. Good luck. A completely monotonous voice concluded. After a while of waiting, the door of Team 7 opened. All at once, and they entered the forest, climbing with a firm step through the branches of the tall trees, keeping a fast pace. Getting to the high zone would probably be an advantage. Follow me this way. I see the signing of a team moving at a pace that will allow us to find them in less than a minute, Sasuke said. That quickly, and seeing their nods, moved in the predicted direction. Naruto started thinking about a first contact strategy. I'm going to direct them into the air. Sakura, try to catch as many as you can with your ninja cable and paralyze them. Sasuke, run damage control. Use lethal force if you must do. Do it. 30. Hey guys. Yes, I know. There they come straight. The hidden waterfall. Genin looked up to see a ninja with a black pot and a sedge hat knitting seals with indifference. If you squinted hard enough, you could see a blue orb. Under. There's one behind too. He turned around, and sure enough there was another ninja weaving stamps. A clone. Jump now. The two ninjas threw huge fireballs at each other, forming an even bigger one in the middle of the clearing. The three ninjas at the waterfall felt the heat under their feet. Luckily, they each had large containers of water strapped to their backs, which they unscrewed quickly. Okay, we need to surround ourselves with our human fairies if we want to survive that hell. The supposed leader ordered while weaving his own seals, and his companions followed his orders quickly. He had to stop abruptly when 4 shurikens came out of the trees and interrupted him. They were so scattered that they were able to catch up with their companions as well. He brandished a cradle and deflected the ninja tools as best he could while he was in the air and stretching to protect to his teammates so they could finish the much-needed jutsu to protect them from the hell roaring below. So it wasn't his fault that he couldn't execute the manual shinobi deflection technique. Now he would understand why he should have practiced this movement in his muscle memory a long time ago. He felt himself constricting for a second before he could throw his crib and in the direction where the shuriken was coming from. Looking at the pink-haired Kunoichi hidden among the leaves, he was somehow able to read her lips as she finished her sequence of stamps. He pushed his teammates to hell just before he could be defeated, preventing his jutsu from taking place. Raiten. Den Kirisu. It was almost a whisper, but he heard it. Suten. Human ovary? The 2 remaining waterfall ninjas finished at the same time. They were enveloped by a sphere of water that seemed to have constant agitated waves. They looked up and were shocked to see their leader get electrocuted. And AIDS. One of them exclaimed before his water sphere was engulfed in flames. 30. Team 7 stood in front of the waterfall team, watching them with disinterest. The clearing was full of steam, and they were just waiting for it to dissipate. Sasuke's eye was quivering with annoyance. He hadn't lifted a finger yet. I had just watched these second-rate shinobi suffer the worst defeat of their career. It was kind of funny to see them shouting orders at each other, trying desperately to get ahead. As the steam dissipated, the 2 shinobi were getting up from the ground. Some parts of his body were red from the burns, but not from the fire. They used chakra to keep the water from boiling against the fire that Naruto had used, something they weren't very good at. They probably would have fared better if Sakura hadn't incapacitated their leader. Now they had little chakra and were injured. And that was a shame too, because he was going to put his taijutsu to the test. He got into position and watched them fearfully as they adopted their own postures. He smiled smugly. Well, you still have some fighting left. He was about to charge when a hand landed firmly on his shoulder. No need, Sasuke, you're just wasting energy for no reason, Naruto said as he passed Sasuke. He took off his Sage hat and looked at the two shinobi. Really, I think we should resolve this peacefully. Naruto lifted his headband. They should throw the scroll to us and take their partner somewhere to recover, he said with open arms and a slight smile, letting his right eye fully fix on both genin. They stared at him, probably amazed by the red chakra emanating from his eye. I got you. One of the genin from the waterfall ran to the unconscious body of their leader, retrieved the scroll, and threw it to Naruto, who caught it with a smile, which faded slightly when he saw that it was a heavenly scroll. It seemed that their conversation would have to wait a little longer. He looked in the direction of the chakra. Even though it was far away, I could still feel it. The genin took his companion and retreated somewhere, followed by his companion. Sharing in hypnosis successful, Naruto thought as he covered his eye and put on his Sage hat. I'm sorry you didn't get any action, Sasuke, but we may have a few more battles to come, since we didn't get the scroll we needed. So next time I'll let you take over. Sasuke shows a bad mood. All right, let's move. He bent down to dodge a part. Devastating, and then dodged the next blow of Tanto from the ninja Kusa, who was taller, by jumping backwards. Sakura saw the poison shining on the leaf and knew she had to avoid it. She performed a brief sequence of seals and replaced herself with a fallen branch just as her opponent was about to stab her. Now that she had some distance, she started a genjutsu that would make her opponent look stabbed by her. Sakura watched as the ninja Kusa tensed and released her seal, thus disconnecting her chakra from the shinobi's network and deactivating the genjutsu. But the damage was already done. After seeing and feeling how Sakura, moving incredibly fast, pierced his chest with a cradle and turned and looked with wide eyes at the real Sakura who was approaching. He jumped up to knee the older ninja in the face and caught him in one fell swoop, but he wasn't done. In the air, he reached into his bag and pulled out a ninja wire, with which he performed an elegant maneuver, while flipping it over and falling to the ground. Now that her goal was tangled, she started knitting stamps for her electric chair technique. The result was the smell of burning skin. Sakura coldly looked at the genin, who was practically a man. She didn't appreciate what he said he would do to her after he won. She shuddered and her skin stood up. Don't underestimate me, Sakura whispered, and then walked away to where her companions were fighting their own opponents. Earlier, they had come across two teams of Kusa ninjas, who had probably formed an alliance for the test. Sasuke's preemptive strike plan, which used to include the generous use of shock tags, had brought down a ninja for good, and had certainly leveled the playing field. Sakura doubted that she could face two at once and calmly plan a strategy. 30. Ah, Sakura, you've taken long enough. Turns out these guys had two earth scrolls, so it's like we passed twice, haha. Naruto exclaimed. His two opponents lay in front of him with severe burns, but they would survive. Not Sasuke's. Ready. Now I can go with that taut boy. I'll leave the scrolls for you, Sasuke. Sakura looked at Naruto and asked him why she was so excited. Although it was nice to see him excited and brimming with energy, like when they started as a team, it made him uneasy to think that he would be so excited about going to face the enemies. Friends alone, without them. But maybe it was something I felt I had to do. I walked to where Sasuke and Naruto were discussing how they would meet again, and some precautions on what to do if someone got hurt while they were apart. Naruto, be careful please. Don't do anything reckless, please. Sakura looked at Naruto with a hint of tears. Obviously, I was afraid of losing another close colleague and friend. Seeing this made Naruto blush a little and almost hesitate to answer. Don't worry, Sakura-chan, he'll be fine, no matter what. We are all strong now, thanks also to Jiraiya-sensei. Naruto said with a raised fist and a proud expression. Without his Sage hat, his one blue eye shone with the same old determination. Sakura sounds slightly. I haven't called her that in a long time. I'm coming. He turned his back and was about to leave. Make sure to minimize skirmishes. We could be already going to the tower, and spending the first day, if it wasn't for your feelings for this boy, loser. Sasuke said with a malicious smile. Sakura had a horrified look, and without them seeing, a vein swelled up on Naruto's forehead, and for a moment everyone was silent. So what? Not at all. You ruined an amazing moment for me, you bastard. Naruto turned around with his fist raised, and fire in his only visible eye, screaming comically. He was quite a sight in his new outfit as he stepped. She was wearing the wooden Jetta sandals that Jiraiya had given her. Sakura chuckled, while Sasuke held up his hands with the same malicious smile. Naruto raised his arms in exasperation and turned around again. Although his classmates didn't see him, he had a big smile on his face. He enjoyed those moments with his team, and would give anything to keep them. That's why I would come back, I had to. If it wasn't for him, then for them. Anyway, I'll try. See you tomorrow for sure. And then, after putting on the sedge hat again, he disappeared for dear life. Speed, while his companions did the same, heading east in the opposite direction. They would camp by a river to stock up on water, as they didn't have any, and after 2 clashes, one with 2 teams. Sasuke and Sakura would need to rest soon, although it would most likely become a busy area by nightfall, if it wasn't already. They had been running for about 20 minutes when Sasuke looked back, to his right, and saw that Sakura still seemed somewhat worried about leaving her partner alone. He raised his fist to signal them to stop, and they were directed to a clearing. He had deactivated his Sharingan to conserve chakra, and honestly, he hated to say it. But there was no point in keeping it always active when there was no one to intimidate. Sakura wasn't thinking clearly, and probably wouldn't be reliable in an important fight. She had a feeling that she had to fix it. And fix it now. He walked up to her and put his hand on her shoulder. Sakura was a little startled at the unexpected contact, and looked at Sasuke, blushing. He was staring into her eyes, smiling warmly. Sakura, I know I've said harsh things before, but it was because I was angry at my brother, and it was naivety on my part. Then his gaze turned would be, despite what I said, you are strong, and I apologize to you. Sakura was so amazed that she couldn't even think of the words. Just keep listening. And that said, you need to believe in Naruto. I believe in Naruto, and I believe in you, so at least for now. You can't think about those things because Sasuke pulled his arm away from his shoulder, closed his eyes and sighed. I had a bad feeling. He opened his eyes, showing the 3 Tomo Sharingan, and looked towards the dark undergrowth in what seemed to be a random direction for Sakura. I think we've been followed. Naruto had already been traveling for about 20 minutes before he stopped at an area surrounded by large rocky outcrops that rose about 5 meters into the air each on average, with small bushes dotting their surface. It reminded him a bit of his team's training camp, except there was a slight fog permeating the area. As it was starting to get dark, the area had a somewhat unsettling feeling. You know, you guys are really good, but you're going to have to work a little harder on your stealth. If you want to take me by surprise, Naruto turned around and was met with the ordinary sight of a leaf-genning team that he did not recognize from the surroundings of the village, although it did not seem unusual to him since Jiraiya's training. He had basically isolated them from the whole village. But there were definitely some things unusual about this group. Each wielded a standard katana, and each of them had it in the same position as the other on his tool belt, except for the middle one who was left-handed. He also had a white scarf-type forehead protector. The teammate to his right had a horizontal scar, somewhat distinctive zontal on his chin, with shaggy shoulder-length brown hair that covered different parts of his face, depending on the way he moved, while the other had dull gray hair that was pulled up in a ponytail. They were all wearing the same uniform too, which was the uniform the Chunin wore under their vests, and each one looked to be around 18 years old. However, they all stood completely professional, with an emotionless and unreadable look in their eyes. Naruto thought that it probably looked the same, because he realized that it was because the 4 shinobi in that clearing. They knew that in the coming fight there would be death. The air was tense, while both sides were silent. Naruto was getting more and more anxious, and now he was accumulating chakra in his body, ready to release large and small amounts at any time. So be it. He raised his hand and gathered black chakra visible on it, and just like that, the glade came into action. The 3 enemy shinobi of the blade looked somewhat surprised, but they all overcame it as quickly as they saw it on their faces. Naruto used a strange move like this at the beginning of the combat, intentionally to gauge his reactions. And just as he expected, he saw it in their eyes. These were ninjas who had been tested time and time again, had seen many peculiar techniques, and would adapt and fight to the end. These were not genin. He was just wondering what his target was when the middle one jumped on his chakra ray, while his companions ran in both directions, and quickly performed seals, shooting a huge fireball at Naruto. However, Naruto was already on the move, running to his left to gain distance. But his colleagues were not standing idly by. In front of Naruto was one of the blade genin with the scar on his chin, running with him at the same speed intentionally. Damn, this one is at least faster than me. Naruto gritted his teeth. The ninja brandished his sword in the opposite direction they were heading to prevent Naruto from doing just that. Naruto had drawn Sekirjo to stop, and, taking advantage of the momentum, turned to dodge the blow, taking his sword with him, and attacked his opponent's unprotected side. The Scar ninja wasted no time in ducking, but Naruto had already foreseen this possibility, and knew that the other ninja wanted to take advantage of his blind spot. The ninja Kanosu appeared just in time for Naruto, who continued with the twist. The ninja, obviously surprised, blocked the attack quickly, having to use both arms to absorb the blow completely. Naruto couldn't help but smile smugly. Naruto quickly materialized a wall of black chakra twice his size behind him, which undoubtedly saved him an instant. To try to eliminate the one in front of him, the black chakra accumulated in his left hand, pointing it at the ninja's stomach. Although it wasn't as powerful as the Rasengan, it was definitely faster to form, and he still couldn't concentrate on maintaining a wall, even for a few seconds, while forming a one-hit death technique like the Rasengan. The real question was not whether I could incapacitate him, but whether I could do it before the third team member interfered. The answer was no, he decided, and replaced himself with one of the few shadow clones he had hidden among the quarry. I couldn't even consider it. Half a second later, he witnessed his clone die at the hands of the handkerchief companion, who was quite tall, impaling him vertically from the base of the neck. It was probably sticking out of the lower part of his pelvis. Naruto grimaced, and, as the clone exploded into smoke, cancelled the transfer of those memories. I didn't want to experience that. That first struggle probably lasted only a few seconds, but Naruto hypothesized that if he had somehow evaded the third strike, they would have kept their strategy of constant bombing. It was an unconventional strategy, and he wondered if they were doing it to prevent him from doing what he was doing. He lifted the headband, revealing his eternal demonic-looking Mangekyo. No, they couldn't know anything about something like that, could they? It's time to end this. I may have wanted answers sooner, but these guys are too dangerous to just incapacitate. They'll kill me trying. Let's see how they deal with overwhelming power, he thought as he flew through the seals from his elevated position. Towards the end of his sequence of seals, the grizzled ninja looked at him, urging his companions to do the same, so that you can feel the accumulation of chakra. Well, it's big after all. Finishing with the tiger seal, he announced his jutsu. Katen. Ryuki Doki no Jutsu. Naruto unleashed 7 huge fireballs at the trio of skilled genin. Naruto could not see the shinobi with the scar on his chin performing his own seals fluently, without fear or hesitation. Nor did he know that his companions showed no concern on their faces. A huge explosion exploded in the quarry, destroying high stone outcrops, charring the earth, and even clearing the fog. When the smoke cleared, the sight Naruto received left him stunned. In the middle of a rather large crater, standing vertically over its mouth, there was a real statue of a fish, standing vertically over its mouth with a living, moving eye. It fluttered across the clearing until it focused on him. Inside the narrow crack of his mouth was the blade ninja with the scar on his chin, crouched on one knee so he could fit into the cramped space. And no doubt his teammates as well. They were inside. He was staring at the ground, his hair covering his face. His left arm was resting on the corresponding knee. and his right hand was holding a half-tiger seal. He looked up, looking Naruto straight in the eyes, and said the first words anyone on his team had ever said. "Hemph, cut yourself." "Buranzumazu," he said without showing any emotion in his tone. Naruto could finally read this one's expression. This guy looked bored. "QQQ, well, isn't that awesome?" An ominous-looking kunoichi slowly rose from the surface of one of the thicker branches Sasuke was looking at. She put her hands on her hips lazily, as if she were chatting with children. "You found me." And he chuckled again. "You seem strong, but a little arrogant coming here alone, don't you think?" Sasuke didn't flinch in the slightest at this strange lady, although it was strange that she went unnoticed for so long. Sakura seemed to be too. "Oh, really? You know what I think?" Sasuke advanced so he could get a closer look at his opponent, as they were hiding a bit in the shadows. He had a fairly ordinary face, with long black hair, and was wearing a cream-colored tunic suitable for combat, with a black turtleneck undershirt and normal shinobi pants. The most peculiar thing about her was the ridiculously thick purple rope tied around her waist in a bow at the back. He stared at her, his Sharingan spinning, putting his own hand on her waist. "I think if you stay here, you'll die." Such an oppressive hatred in those fantastic eyes of his, but somehow he can contain it. "It may be tougher to crack than I thought." A special twinkle shone in her eyes, but she recovered. She brought a hand to her face, lowered her eyelid, and looked at him in a way that actually scared Sasuke for an instant. "Oh, but they couldn't say the same about you, Sasuke-kun." A devilish smile crossed his face. That certainly wasn't like that face, Sasuke thought. And then I understood. Sasuke was completely lost in fear. He had barely begun to witness his own death when he came back to reality. Things like that, no. I couldn't affect him anymore. He had already experienced the killer instinct of 2 of the 7 mist swordsmen. Not to mention that he had overcome the immense fear that inspired that fish-like ninja to attack his brother. Although he had to take the blame to the ninja that he couldn't be a genin, not after that, that was awesome. Turning around instantly to see how Sakura was doing with her killer instinct, she saw that she was staring at the ground with her eyes closed, trembling as she clutched a kunai. But gradually, his breathing calmed down, the trembling stopped, and he looked up with a determined and focused look. "That's right, Sakura and I share the same experience as members of Team 7. It will be fine," he thought firmly. As he turned to face the Kusa ninja, he found 2 kunai surprisingly close. Backing up quickly, he put his hands into the bag of his weapon with both hands, and threw 2 shurikens to deflect them. One of the kunai turned towards Sasuke thanks to his precision and timing. With one hand, he grabbed it and with the other reached into the bag, extracting an explosive note with a single movement. He hit her and threw the crib, an offensive to its owner, while with another somersault, he returned to the position of Sakura. "Sakura, you should head east, we are not that far from the river, and you will need it to get the best out of your jutsu repertoire. I'll slow it down for a bit, let's use the collaboration that Hiraya-sensei taught us." "Cool," he whispered, his voice breaking. He might not have mentally recovered from that killer instinct yet, but he would have to settle. They were already moving, making their way through the giant trees of the Forest of Death, as Sasuke started to speak. After saying that, he turned around and started knitting stamps, letting Sakura take the opportunity to escape. "Katen. Gakaki Unojutsu." He threw it towards the ninja Kusa, now visible. Sasuke, turning to the left, kept weaving seals and following the enemy's movements. "Katen. Osenka no Jutsu." Firing fireballs rapidly as he followed the speedy Kusanin, he missed all his shots, and had fired quite a few. As he lost momentum in the air and fell to the ground, he instantly attacked 8 kunai around him, seemingly at random, each of which caused the resounding blow of a pierced tree. He lowered his gaze, and was surprised to see that the kunoichi hadn't even tried to take advantage of his movements. He simply stood between the clearing of this one. Trozato, looking at him with a slight smile, waiting for his fall. He gritted his teeth. Being underestimated like that didn't matter. In the end, it would benefit him. He threw another cradle, and with ninja wire to another tree, and swung towards it instead of falling into the clutches of the Kusanin. "Oh, don't be scared. Sasuke-kun, Although it is natural to feel afraid for a prey like you, looked at the field for a moment before looking back at Sasuke, who was chakra adhering to the tree he was brandishing. Cuckoo, shuriken hidden in the flames, tell me, Sasuke-kun, that was to increase the lethality of your jutsu. He almost laughed when he said the latter. No, those along with the kunai embedded in the trees were to install electrical ducts for, Sasuke spoke. Then started to form them nonchalantly. This jutsu. Reiten. He praised Sekirite no jutsu. He bent down and touched the kunai he used to get to his position. Suddenly, extremely bright lights shot out of the weapon and connected with other kunai and shuriken, and the process continued. Until all the weapons in the clearing connected in a way that it would be ridiculous to escape by conventional means. As if that were not enough, every lightning bolt began to spark, pair and crackle, making the escape route even more gloomy, giving the rays what looked like a slightly wider area to be careful of. All this happened in a matter of seconds since Sasuke touched the kunai. The Kusanin was taken by surprise, but somehow managed to get to safety among the sights. This person has experience, like to be surprised like that, and still adapt to the current situation to survive. What am I facing? Awesome, what an advanced planning to use an also unconventional jutsu in this way, but you get the idea. She was interrupted again when the genin sighed. He gritted his teeth in silence. It had been a long time since anyone had fired her, not even herself. Let me guess, you can escape. I could try to manipulate the rays and deal him a blow, but he's already reached an area big enough for me to knit. He would prefer to counter it with his own jutsu. I'll cut my losses and regroup with Sakura for now. Do whatever you want, you idiot. I'm going to my camp. He turned his back to her, but turned his eyes to give her one last threatening look with his Sharingan. Follow us if you still want to die. And with that, the boy retired. The Kusanin watched the place she had left firm for a moment. And for a while, everything was silent, except for the constant crackling of the rays from the previous jutsu. She looked down at her feet, her hair covering her features. He clenched his fists tightly. A crater about 3 meters in diameter appeared around him, caused solely by the force of the chakra. The surge of power lifted his hair, revealing a malevolent smile that bared his teeth. Slowly, he began to sink into the ground. I admit that I also felt a little pressured. Her smile widened. Maybe I should hurt him a little to teach the brat manners, cuckoo. 30. A big fish statue. That's not even cool. How come he looks so badass? Naruto thought with humor, despite the escalating situation. So a defensive summoning jutsu that can defend against one of my strongest elemental jutsu, problematic. I guess it was a bit impulsive of me to use all my resources that way, huh? And I haven't seen the skills of those two yet. The other two had come out of the back of the tanned catfish, apparently out the other side of its mouth, to support their companion. They were in a rather large desolate wasteland, without fog or cover, except for his huge tan catfish, thanks to his fire jutsu. Before they could start a jutsu, he put his hands together, and his black chakra began to form in them. It seemed that it started bubbling uncontrollably, and then they suddenly froze. Chikura Sakusa? Hundreds of chakra projectiles the size of golf balls flew towards the team at breakneck speed, forcing them to take shelter immediately after the defensive invocation, as they did not want to be hit running on the field of open battle. The Buranzuna Masu closed his eye and mouth. Apparently, he also had bronze eyelids. Naruto smiled smugly. Heh, I got you. The team looked up and saw a clone of the boy in the air falling towards them with his hands clasped and eyes closed, focused. Chikura Koyaku, the clone said quietly. Naruto stopped firing his jutsu and put his hands together to help his clone shape the chakra. A large amount of black chakra emerged from the ground around him, forming a circular and dark prison. The chakra also covered the head of the catfish, and inside the prison, it surrounded the mouth of the salmon, so that the shinobi could not run away towards it. Now it's time for the punchline. He ordered his chakra to fire and pierce through the shinobi while they were trapped. Just as Naruto was about to land, the handkerchief ninja suddenly emerged and pierced him with his katana. The clone disappeared in a cloud of smoke moments later. The real Naruto saw them escape thanks to his chakra traveling on the ground, another failed attempt. And now they were on the counterattack. Suddenly, Naruto had to focus on the chakra that was accumulating under his feet. An earth jutsu. He jumped up to meet the approaching chakra signatures, still underground, dodging a cluster of earth spikes shooting upwards from where he was before. Naruto raised his hands to face the moving signatures and prepared the same jutsu as before. Chakura Sakusa. His chakra projectiles pierced the earth, leaving many holes. Surely they would have pierced them too. But Naruto was upset to see that his chakra remained the same. So they must be normal clones. They must have changed when I got distracted by jutsu. Then they must be. He turned and, true to his thoughts, the grizzled ninja and the one with the scar were surging through the air towards him, with their swords drawn. Then I'll catch them with a genjutsu. His red and white Sharingan spun excitedly, and as the shinobi approached with their swords, nothing happened. Naruto was surprised, but he noticed that they didn't even look him in the eyes, they just had their gaze fixed on his torso. They were trained to fight the Sharingan, but why? It had been years since there had been any ucha for them to need that method of struggle. He had to overcome the surprise and draw the Sekirjo to stop the attack of the ninja with scars, which was going straight to the right side of his abdomen. The white-haired shinobi tried to punch him in the face, but Naruto was able to see enough with his Sharingan-like to turn his body and deal him a hard kick in the face, leaving him lying on the ground. Still, he suffered a shallow cut on his right shoulder from the exertion. Sensing the imminent danger, he formed a black wall over it with his chakra, just in time to stop the same air attack of the handkerchief ninja. With both arms, he pushed himself to get away from the scarred ninja's sword, regaining some air, but in doing so, the scarred ninja took advantage of his loss of consciousness. He reached into his bag and threw a shuriken at Naruto, which slid cleanly into the boy's abdomen. Sending him away with a gift, Naruto performed a backflip and still managed to land gracefully despite his recent injuries. After removing the shuriken from his side, he got ready. He still retained most of his healing abilities after accidentally removing the fox from his seal. Injuries like these wouldn't stop him. It still bothered him that he had dealt the first blow in the 2 minutes of combat that had gone by. The ninja with the scar and the one with the handkerchief regrouped with their wounded companion, and again both stood face to face, looking at each other in silence. And then, the one with the scar spoke, but obviously he was addressing his companions. "Don't worry, we can kill him, but they suggested that we not do it," he said in a monotone voice, then cocked his head, making his disheveled brown hair cover one eye, and directed a look at Naruto that he could not decipher. But no matter what happens, the eye must remain intact. Naruto opened his eyes wide in amazement. They were after his eye, carrying out orders. But they were leaf ninjas. Who among the top brass would give such an order, especially knowing who he was? Everything smelled terrible. It doesn't matter. I need to finish this now before too much time passes. I already feel that the Kyuubi is trying to escape from my Kamui. Get ready, Sakura. Here he comes. Sasuke shouted, with the Sharingan at full volume, still panting from the run and the few jutsus he had used. It was a testament to the speed of the grass Kunoichi, with how quickly he had escaped from his trap and found them. It was a bit daunting, but Sasuke only felt it for an instant, staring at the approaching chakra as he prepared his kyune. Sakura nodded determinedly, aware of her role in the fight. The river they had reached was at their backs, and the forest in front, fulminating them with its threatening shadows, twisted branches and gigantic trees. It was getting dark, and night would fall on them soon if this turned into a prolonged battle. Sasuke knew that neither he nor Sakura were prepared for something like this, so the fight would have to end there. Sasuke threw 2 shurikens at 2 separate trees, facing each other, and performed the same seals as before. Predicting the Kusa ninja's next moves, Raiten. He praised Sekirite no Jutsu. The Kunoichi finally appeared among the foliage, having to turn around the electric ray that suddenly appeared on its route. Sakura now. But I didn't need to tell her because she was already done with her jutsu. Suten. Akita and Yuri no Jutsu. A soft but sharp water spear gushed out of the water at an incredible speed. He was heading towards the kunoichi, trying to cross it in the middle of a somersault. The Kusa ninja finished her somersault surprisingly fast and kicked down, breaking the water lance with ease, getting soaked in the process. What? He broke the water lance effortlessly. She thought in amazement, but immediately calmed down when she noticed something lucky. Still, the plan can still work. Sakura ran to Sasuke and put her hand on his back while holding a half-tiger seal and closed her eyes to concentrate her chakra. Sasuke felt the control of the water on the grass kunoichi and reacted, forming a tiger seal. Using his fire chakra, he began to superheat the water. They would boil this strange lady to death. A simple collaborative jutsu, but used correctly, or in his case, fortunately, it could be very lethal. His screams could be heard even before he hit the ground, which was also quite violent, but Sasuke narrowed his eyes. I had seen him. Releasing the label, he released 2 more, but it didn't seem to work. Seeing this, Sakura withdrew her hand and became defensive. Immediately, the fallen Kusanin turned into a boiling mud mass. Sakura was a little startled. For a second, she thought they had at least caught her, but they had been tricked. Looking up at the big tree that Sasuke was watching, he saw the enemy again, watching them from a branch with an indecipherable gaze. Sakura swallowed hard. This woman was really scary. Kukuku, that's a collaboration technique my old sensei taught our team to fight certain Kiri ninjas in war. Only Tsunade should have the control to do something like that. She looked at the pink-haired girl, enjoying her shiver. I wonder who taught these brats, Kukukuku. The prey should not be too arrogant. You should always be alert, Sasuke interrupted her again, but this time things were a little different. As he looked down, he saw what appeared to be a lightning sword protruding from his chest where his heart should be. This is Kakashi's Reikiri. The silent lightning sword, amazing, so that I have already learned it. The Sasuke by the river, next to Sakura, dissipated into water, indicating that it was an aquatic clone. Sasuke had hidden it before to use it as a substitute, but after seeing the substitute ninja, he opted for a different approach. He took the opportunity to substitute himself for the clone and get a better position for an assassination. Sakura smiling smugly. Sugo, and I can't believe Sasuke did it. I knew about the clone that Sasuke had hidden, but I didn't think to use it that way. Couldn't you say the same about yourself, loser? Sasuke let the electricity go out as he saw the skin turn pale and the Kusanin's arms go limp. When trying to separate his arm from the dead ninja's body, he will be surprised to discover that thick snakes are holding him tightly, surrounding and hissing at him. He was too tired of the Reikiri he had just performed to escape. They came from the left sleeve of the supposedly dead kunoichi, or so I thought until she spoke. Kukuku. I can see that your intentions earlier were true, Sasuke-kun, but he turned to look at Sasuke. Sasuke looked into her eyes and noticed that she had changed in color and shape, turning yellow, and that her pupils were ajar like those of the snakes that surrounded her arm. His mouth was jammed shut, unable to say anything, and he could barely coordinate his thoughts. She sounds smugly. I've taken your words very seriously, so I think we should up the ante a little. The leaves began to fall on them. Sasuke didn't understand the meaning of what he was saying, but he fought harder. After a couple of futile attempts to escape, he wondered why so many leaves were falling. And then the trees above them rumbled. Sasuke looked up just long enough to see a gigantic snake emerge from the dark foliage above them with its jaws gaping open, and head straight for them. Sasuke stared at the grass kunoichi, and his face twisted in fury. How was it possible that she was still alive? It didn't make sense. But they'll eat us both, he screamed, with the Sharingan spinning furiously. The woman just smiling with that same cruel smile that seemed alien to that face. Seeing her only increased Sasuke's anger and his growing despair. He couldn't even think of how to free his arm, let alone escape from that snake. Inside the kunoichi thought, what you don't know, Sasuke-kun, is that this snake never said he would turn his summoner, and I would never allow him to devour you. The snake was just a few meters away from getting its food when it was surprised by Suten, Suiryuden no Jutsu. A sizable water dragon emerged from the river after Sakura, panting, but decided. It was enough to crush the snake with force, diverting it from its course towards the trunk of another tree, undoubtedly causing serious damage to it. Sasuke took a breath to calm down. Arigato Sakura. With his head turned away from the impending fate, he reached his free hand into his bag of weapons, pulled out a cradle, and stabbed the invincible Kunoichi. Before he could do anything, the snakes surrounding his arm lengthened at an amazing speed, instantly taking him away from his target. So, he was thrown in a random direction, but managed to straighten up in the air, jumping from the tree he was heading towards. Sakura's position. As he did so, the snakes hid in the sleeves of the Kunoichi. She slouched forward, her arms hanging completely limp and bleeding from the huge hole in her chest. The yellow, slanted eyes had disappeared. They had returned to their original black, but they stared lifelessly into the distance. The face lost any emotion or expression it had before, while the mouth simply remained open. Sakura sighs with relief and smiles uneasily at her companion. Sasuke is already dead, right? As if to personally answer that question, the body suddenly fell back, arms hanging limp. The mouth opened incredibly wide, and when Sasuke and Sakura thought it would stop, it kept growing and growing until two pairs of fingers, paler than the apparently dead body they came from, were delicately placed on either side of the already widened mouth. They pulled until the creature inside reared its hideous head, then its body, and then its paws. The spectacle was more grotesque than anything Sakura or Sasuke had ever seen before. They stood with their eyes wide open, trembling at what was in front of them. A strange aura constantly emanated from him. It was vile, like the aura of inhumanity. She was dark and evil, unlike the one of Itachi and his partner that day. They felt overwhelming in a different way. A man with long, wavy black hair and pale skin appeared before them. She was wearing the same outfit as the dead grass Kunoichi, which was lying on the ground, with the appearance of a shedding of skin. If anything, hers looked a little more vibrant and flawless. She was wearing two silver magatama earrings and a purple eyeliner that went down the bridge of her pointed nose. Finally, he had those snake eyes from before, and that same cruel and sinister smile from before. But now Sasuke could see that on that face it fit him perfectly. "What are you?" Sasuke managed to stammer. For some reason, she felt like she was drowning in the presence of this man. Sakura wasn't feeling well either. His situation had gone from good to hopeless in a matter of seconds. The mysterious shinobi chuckled and looked at him with an interest. "I'm Orochimaru." He spoke in a soft, if somewhat husky tone, without abandoning his smile. It seemed like a short introduction, but it was enough for Sasuke and Sakura to understand the gravity of the situation. They had been attacked by their sensei's partner, a missing leaf ninja of S rank. Not to mention that he had done it during an international Chunin exam was absurd. What was your purpose in doing this? And they came out of their thoughts when Orochimaru motioned for Sasuke to come closer. "Come on, Sasuke-kun, you've made me come out of my costume. So don't be afraid of my true form." His smile widened as he continued to speak. "Go ahead and fight. Before everything is said and done today, you will be completely shattered." As he spoke, he clenched his fist tightly. Noticing that Sasuke was still paralyzed and not acceding to his request, he shrugged his shoulders. "I guess I'll come after you then, Sasuke-kun." And with that said, he disappeared only to reappear with his fist stuck in Sasuke's stomach. The nuclear ninja of that rank was now on the offensive. 30. "I'm going to finish that white-haired one first. He's been the slowest of all, and I think he broke him. At least I fractured those ribs in our last exchange. Gee, he just needed to be fast. Time was of the essence for his Sharingan." He ran forward, creating 4 shadow clones to run with him. One jumped in the air and held his left wrist with the other hand, with the left hand focused, each finger tense. Suddenly, a large black orb, as big as Naruto's clone, gushed out of his hand, and was then reluctantly contained into a ball big enough for him to hold. Chikura Novakuatsu, his bronze catfish, was a few meters behind Naruto, so there was really no cover. Turning to the right and making a full turn, the clone took advantage of the momentum to launch the incredibly heavy and dense chakra. The ball flew out towards the enemy team of leaf ninjas faster than they initially anticipated. But they still managed to jump firm where the orb landed, hoping for some effect. They were not disappointed, for soon after, it was evident who escaped from a big explosion. It exploded under them, leaving a crater 4.5 meters deep in the already charred earth. Another of the clones fired the Chikura Sakusa at the white-haired ninja's companions, forcing them to disperse for a moment to dodge Chakura's bullets. The ninja with handkerchief took out a cradle and wired girl and threw it on the ground in a different place, getting to safety. But immediately a clone rushed at him, with covering fire of chakra bullets from another clone. The scarred genin simply pulled out his sword and deflected the wide shower of chakra bullets. After all, a clone could never be compared to a real one. He skillfully blocked the clone sent to occupy him and was about to deal him a final blow when he had to take off in midair to avoid another shower of his Kusa from the clone at a distance who had gotten a better angle. His goal was to gain the real Naruto precious time to eliminate one of the enemy's companions. The real Naruto flew through the air, forming seals that addressed the white-haired ninja. I need to use chakra as sparingly as possible. After today, I'll be out of it before I know it. And I need the chakra for what I'm going to do next with the other two. Katen. Gakaki Onojutsu. Naruto shot a large fireball at his opponent while they were in the air. The white-haired ninja went through his own seals and used the same jutsu to tie the other one. Naruto's one was a little bigger, but it could have been a lot bigger, but that didn't matter. This is the difference in our power, he thought as a black wall of chakra formed under him. He propelled himself to the side of the great fireballs that were still colliding. He created another wall diagonally and pushed himself to ascend and reach the height of the white-haired ninja. And he created another one to push it towards him. The shinobi was surprised to see him so soon because of his wide eyes and his hasty defense. It must have been as if he had just thrown the jutsu and then appeared next to him to attack him, he thought. Naruto began to attack non-stop in a flurry of deadly sword strikes, combined with a subtle but devastating attack to the body. Every time he landed a kick or a punch to the injured ribs, the ninja flinched, giving Naruto the opportunity to deliver a critical blow with his sword. But the shinobi had a great sense of danger and could stop evading his final blows with Sekirjo. But he was forced to ignore another body blow that escaped him. It was a foreboding pattern for the shinobi's future in the next few seconds. To an ordinary genin, the battle probably looked like a bunch of flashing metal, sparks and rapid body movements. Until now, it had only been about 15 or 20 seconds since Naruto summoned his clones. And they were still in the air while doing so. Turning completely to the left, the white-haired ninja gave his attack all the power that he could, while blocking the blow to the liver with both hands. Naruto could read it like a book with his Sharingan. Taking advantage of the momentum, he propelled himself in the opposite direction of his spin, slipping a right hook under his guard. The shinobi's eyes bulged, and his mouth opened in a silent scream of pain. This is a reaction, come on. Naruto did a front flip and backed up with a devastating downward blow with both arms. It's time for the final supercoup. However, somehow, despite the pain he must have been feeling, the shinobi managed to block the blow by using both arms to resist the force. Blocked, cool. No, that can't be done. Naruto ducked his legs as they floated in the air. I'm the number one, most unpredictable and non-hard-headed ninja in Konoha. He finished his internal monologue while kicking the poor ninja in the body to knock him to the ground. He did a backflip to straighten up in the air and sheathed Sekiryo at the same time, and extended his hands, pointing them at the fallen ninja. Chikura Sakusa. A short burst was enough to ensure his death, not to mention that he still wanted to keep chakra. Naruto landed on the ground an instant later, with dust in the air due to the body and the jutsu. The fight probably lasted 25 seconds or less. He looked around and saw the companions of the recently deceased shinobi standing a few meters away, watching him. The smoke from his shadow clones was still abundant due to their recent destruction. If they felt anything about the death of their partner, it was not noticeable. But their positions were tense, they thought it was their turn to attack. Too bad, I was already done doing that. Now that I have less stuff to look at. He closed his Sharingan eye, staying with both eyes closed, and then black blood was slowly gushing from his right eyelid. The two enemy shinobi of the blade in the clearing were alert to what would come next. Naruto's eye popped open, bright red veins contrasting with his black sclera. The QB chakra cascaded from the eye non-stop. Amaterasu.